School System Board of Education meeting to order. If you would, please silence or turn off your electronic devices as not to interrupt the meeting. And we do not have Mr. Brown present at this time. I'm sure he's hopefully on the way. But we have Mr. Will Doss, who's going to pinch hit, and he's going to take care of the Griffin-Spalding County School Spotlight for today.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. I'd like to take just a second and say thank you to Mr. Brown, even though he's not here. A couple of years ago is when he instituted or suggested that we institute the school spotlight. And because of that, each monthly meeting we do that, and it's been a tremendous success. Mr. Brown is actually here, so I haven't actually begun. Would you like for me to go ahead, or would you like me to turn the spotlight back over to you?
What's your pleasure, Mr. Brown?
I'm sorry?
What's your pleasure?
You can go ahead and do the spotlight.
All right. So the school that we're spotlighting today is Cowan Road Elementary. Let's go ahead and give them a big applause. Cowan Road has 531 scholars that attend. We are the Cowan Colts. Once a Colt, always a Colt. They have 70 staff members, including the awesome custodians and nutrition staff. A quote from the principal: "I love being the principal of Cowan Road Elementary because our staff is dedicated to helping our scholars see their own potential. Knowing that we are establishing a firm foundation that our scholars can build a future on is exciting." Our theme this year is Colts Can. While this is a simple phrase, it has a very important message for our scholars. Colts can achieve. Colts can be leaders. Colts can be creative. Colts can make a difference. As you can see, the possibilities of what our Colts can do is limitless. This year, we've opened our Colts Collab, which shows students to display their creativity and problem-solving skills through the STEM design process. Our staff has renewed a focus on professional learning this year. We have focused on diversity, balanced literacy, and effective planning. We've welcomed 5 new teachers into the profession, including a teacher intern from Mercer University, and they have all shown tremendous growth, dedication to the profession, and a love for students. Don't you love that part? We are proud to say they will be returning to Cowan Road Elementary School next year. Created several videos to share social media this year to highlight our school. We've seen an increase in parent participation in events to the convenience of the virtual meetings and the virtual conferences. We're excited to begin planning a big enrichment project for our school for next year, and we'll bring together students, parents, and community members. What is the school doing to promote diversity, inclusion, and equity among our scholars? Our staff participated in a diverse training in February. We have purchased resources for book studies to promote understanding of different backgrounds and circumstances and how they impact student achievement. When purchasing classroom supplies and books, we have focused on purchasing items that highlight various cultures. In our front lobby, we have a display that highlights a different culture or group of people each month. We hope to expand this for next year and include some student performances and a display for Media Center to encourage students to read books that promote diversity. So I would like to welcome to step up front Cowan Road Elementary School. Once a Colt, always a Colt. Please come on up.
If Dr. Harvey and her staff or any scholars are here, if you would come up and join my colleagues and I for a picture.
Thank you for that, for pinch hitting for Mr. Brown, Mr. Dawes. At this time, I'm gonna divert to you again if you offer us our prayer for this afternoon. And then after you give us our prayer, we're gonna ask Alexa Fraser to come back, and she's gonna lead us in our pledge.
If you would stand. Let us pray. Father God, Lord, we just thank you for this night. Lord, we thank you for the rain. We thank you, Lord, that also means that sunshine will be coming. Lord, we thank you, Lord, for Griffin-Spalding County School System. We pray, Father, Lord, for your wisdom and direction in this meeting as we do the business that impacts the lives of parents and students and staff. I pray, Father, Lord, that you'll continue, Father, Lord, to allow us to tend upward in all of our work, in all of our efforts, and that you will continue to bless that. In Christ's name we pray.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
I want to thank Ms. Alexa again for leading us in our pledge, and she has with her her sister that accompanied her. Thank you all for being here to help us facilitate our meeting. Right now, we'll have Griffin-Spalding County School System announcement by Mr. Centel Brown.
Good evening, good evening. It is a great day, but also a sad day, because when the students, well, not student spotlight, but the announcement of scholars doing the announcement, that happened about 2 years ago. And in particular, there were two scholars that we started with, Ms. Breazer Flint and Mr. Nicholas Edgerson. Nick graduated last year, went on to college, and so today will be Breaza's last meeting as our scholar clerk. And this is something that she has been very diligent in, even times in saying, Mr. Brown, we got to practice, or Mr. Brown, we need to go over this. And so, Breaza, I just want to say thank you so much for being a model scholar in our district. And I can speak for all of my colleagues that we're so appreciative of you lending yourself and your time during this legislative process. And so, Breaza has decided, colleagues, that she is going to go to GSU, that's Southern, not State. She's going to Georgia Southern, where she'll be majoring in biology. She is already going to be a sophomore entering. She's been at our college and career academy. It's just, the list goes on and on. Maintaining a high GPA, clubs and organizations, and athletics. And so, on behalf of the board, Breaza, we greatly appreciate everything that you've done to be engaged in this process. And so I turn it over to you at this time.
Chairman Holmes, members of the board, and Superintendent Simmons, my name is Breaza Flint, and I'm a senior at Griffin High School. I would like to thank the Board of Education for involving scholars of the district in the policy and legislative process. Today will be, unfortunately, the last day I provide announcements as the scholar clerk of the Board of Education. To each board member, thank you again for giving us scholars this opportunity. The announcements for May 4, 2021 Board of Education meeting are as follows. We're celebrating our teachers this week, May 3rd through May 7th, 2021 for Teachers Appreciation Week. Thank you to all the teachers who are attending. Tuesday, May 4th, 2021 is National Teachers Day, which is today. May 8th through 12th, 2021 is School Nutrition Employee Week. Wednesday, May 12th is National School Nurse Day. On Tuesday, May 18th, the Griffin-Spalding County Board of Education work session will be held at 4 p.m. On Wednesday, May 19th, the Griffin-Spalding County School System retirement celebration will be held at 2 p.m. at the Griffin Region College and Career Academy. Wednesday, May 19th, AZK Academy and Griffin High School Baccalaureate will be held at First Assembly of God, located at 2000 West McIntosh Road in Griffin, Georgia at 7 p.m. On Monday, May 24, 2021, the Spalding High School Baccalaureate will take place at Oak Hill Church at 6 p.m. Wednesday, May 26th is the last day of school. Also on Wednesday, May 26th is AZ Kelsey graduation that will take place at the Griffin Auditorium located at 214 East Taylor Street, Griffin, Georgia, at 9:30 a.m. Also on that day will be Griffin High School graduation that will be held at Memorial Stadium at 7 p.m. Thursday, May 27, 2021, Sparta High School graduation will take place at the Memorial Stadium at 7 p.m. Monday, May 31st, 2021 is Memorial Day, and on Tuesday, June 1st, the Griffin-Spalding County Board of Education meeting will take place at 6 p.m. Governance team, cabinet members, and stakeholders, this concludes my last Board of Education announcements for Tuesday, May 4th, 2021. Thank you.
All right. And she's always done a great job, and we appreciate her willingness to be involved in the process. Next, we're going to adopt the agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented or with any addendums or additions?
Second.
Got a motion by Ms. Cook and second by Ms. McDonald. All in favor, so by raising your right hand. 5-0. All right, recognitions, Ms. Barbara Jo Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We know when we have a room full that we have special recognitions, and that is the case tonight. First recognition, Dr. Reel's STEM Scholars, Mr. Centel Brown.
Thank you so much, seatmate. It is indeed a distinct pleasure to present a group of scholars who have done an amazing thing. They call a thing a thing, and so they've done an amazing thing. And that is to Dr. Reel's 5th grade science class. This year, on Thursday, April 1st, 2021, Atkinson Elementary School participated in its first annual STEAM fair. The theme was Smart Cities. First, scholars learned about smart cities around the world, and they used a program called Tinkercad to create their own smart cities based upon their own ideas for how to make Griffin, Georgia, a smart city. A cohort of scholars presented their ideas at the STEAM fair. The scholars who participated were Carissa Burnett, Jaden Wilkerson, Daria Johnson, Chloe Freeman, Tatiana Driscoll, Caden Smith, Avia Walker, Kamara Dewberry. Atkinson Elementary School is very proud of all the scholars who participated, and they look forward to next year's fair. Atkinson is participating in STEAM, which is different from a science fair in that it is based on engineering design process. This process starts with a problem to be solved. Mayor Doug Holberg participated in this year's STEAM fair. He gave great feedback to each of the scholars who participated. He told them, "Thank you for your recommendations, and we are working to make Griffin a smart city." He talked about how technology is used to communicate with the residents and to manage the city. Mayor Holberg mentioned that the ports for electric cars that are here in Griffin, he noticed that the scholars' projects, that their main concern was trash, and told us about the stream and street adoption activities for Griffin. So not only were they presented with a problem, but they took this problem and now they have decided to adopt a stream, and Atkinson will be participating in a community cleanup, which is slated for October of this year. They also would like to shout out to Dr. Norman Sauce, the Executive Director of Elementary Schools, who also took time out of his day to listen to the projects. He was just as gracious as Mayor Holberg in his comments to the scholars. They were very happy to be presenting to the pillars of this community. So at this time, I bring your attention to the screens for a video.
Ms. Ray, let me know if y'all need my help.
All right, but at this time, we just want to go ahead and say thank you and give a round of applause to Dr. Reel's 5th grade science class over at Atkinson Elementary.
Next, Griffin-Spalding County School System 2021 Star Student Teacher Achievement Recognition. Dr. Donald Warren.
Good evening, Chairman Holmes, board members, and Mr. Simmons.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The Student Teacher Achievement Recognition Program is proud to announce our 2021 Griffin-Spalding Star Students and Star Teachers. The STAR program is now in its sixth third year of existence. It is sponsored, administered, and promoted by the Professional Association of Georgia Educators and the Page Foundation. Since its creation, the STAR program has honored nearly 28,000 students and the teachers they have selected as having had the most influence on their academic achievement. To obtain the 2021 STAR nomination, graduating high school seniors must have had the highest score on one sitting of the SAT and be in the top 10% of the top 10 students of their class based on GPA. The students and their teachers are honored by the schools and receive special recognition from the communities and more than 170 statewide civic organizations and businesses. Students then compete for school system titles, and the winners compete for region honors. Region winners then compete for the honor of being the state Page Star student. Star students, also Star teachers that is, also continue on with the Star students at every level of the program. First of all, from Griffin High School, our Star student, Miss Lydia DeLay, and Star teacher, Miss Rita Poole. We're going to gather around and take photos this time.
She must have gotten all her smarts from her mom.
Now, for Spalding High School, Miss Madison Watley, Star student, and Star teacher, Miss Shelley Worley. Come on up, please.
Next, Griffin-Spalding County School System FCCLA winners, Dr. Laura Ergel.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Simmons, cabinet, and guests. Tonight, we wish to recognize and congratulate 5 outstanding career technical education students from Spalding High School that are members of the Career Technical Student Organization, Family, Careers, and Community Leaders of America. Despite the pandemic and virtual learning for most of the school year, these students have excelled in building their leadership skills and participating in competitive events in a virtual format. 2 of these students, Kiana Allen and Marley Armstrong, competed on the state level against numerous other students around the state, and they placed top in their event and will now compete at the National Leadership Conference.
Awesome.
3 students, Ayana Richardson, Chloe Hotzafel, and JC Poole entered an online competition on instructional video design, and they were selected to compete on the national level from numerous entries across the nation. Please enjoy this brief video highlighting these FCCLA students. So please join me in congratulating these students as well as their awesome teacher advisors, Mrs. Julia Fletcher and Mrs. Shelley Worley, who you also met this evening, and congratulations and best wishes at National. Thank y'all.
Mr. Holmes, I recommend that we have an in-person meeting with those scones and eclairs.
Oh, yes, most certainly. Most certainly. Thank you for that, Mr. Dawson.
Next, Griffin-Spalding GRCCA recognition, Dr. Donald Warren.
We have a special award this evening. The certification process for Georgia College and Career Academies was mandated in Senate Bill 161, which passed in May of 2011, and that was reaffirmed in Senate Bill 348, which passed in May of 2016. These bills require that to be certified, a college and career academy must demonstrate how it accomplishes the following 7 items. Number 1, increase student achievement. Number 2, provides for dual credit and dual enrollment opportunities. 3, addresses workforce development needs. 4, demonstrates local governance and autonomy. 5, increases work-based learning opportunities. 6, articulates how collaboration among business, industry, and community stakeholders will advance workforce development. And number 7, provides evidence to support performance contract renewal. On April 22nd, Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan hosted a celebration of Georgia's college and career academies at our capital. Our very own GRCCA was recognized for its impeccable certification. In the report, the following items were mentioned: 6 commendations for outstanding practices, no suggestions for improvement, and no required actions. To sum it up, we had a perfect report. Out of the 49 current college and career academies in Georgia, 9 academies had their certifications visited in 2020. Our very own GRCCA received the top score. What an award. This time I would like for Ms. Castellan and Dr. Ergo to come forward and take pictures and be recognized.
Dr. Warren, while you're still at the podium, Griffin-Spalding County School System Fine Arts Diploma Seal.
Yes, ma'am. This is our 4th year of awarding the Fine Arts Diploma Seal. Regarding some information and objectives about the Fine Arts Diploma Seal, next slide, please. Thank you. Just some nuggets. The creative industries in Georgia are a $29 billion, that's with a B, $29 billion sector of our economy. They employ more than 200,000 individuals in those professions. The goal of our seal is to create students who are prepared for college and careers in these fine arts-related industries. It's a signal to both the employers and higher education students alike that our students are prepared to contribute in this creative industry sector of our economy. When it comes to requirements for the Fine Arts Diploma Seal, there are 3. First of all, a student must complete a fine arts pathway, which consists of completing a minimum of 3 courses in the following areas: dance, music, theater, visual arts. Pathway completion denotes mastery in this art form. Secondly, a student must take a CTE course with a creative industry focus, or he or she can take a 4th fine arts course. The third requirement is to complete a community arts partnership. They must contribute at least 20 hours of their time to share their talent and industry knowledge, as well as complete a capstone presentation related to their area. Due to COVID, the 20 hours of community service, they were waived this year, but they still had to complete the capstone project. We have some very dedicated and hardworking fine arts teachers at both Griffin High and Spalding High. On the screen there, you'll see these individuals. Chorus at Griffin High, Mr. James Lindsay. Visual arts, Ms. Courtney Favors Evans. Band, Mr. Daniel Goodman. At Spalding High, home of the Jags, Mr. Nicholas Clark, theater, Mr. Brett Duncan, chorus, Ms. Laura Urish, visual arts, and Mr. Joshua Watford, band. With our limited capacity, we didn't invite all 28 individuals or students here this evening and their teachers. In lieu of that, we have a video that we're going to display at this time. On behalf of our students, fine arts teachers, and administrators, I want to thank our board members for their support financially over the last several years that you've contributed and invested to fine arts. It makes a big, big difference. Thank you.
Next, the Griffin-Spalding County School System 2020 retirees, Mr. Keith Simmons.
Thank you, Mrs. Cook. Good afternoon, Chairman Holmes.
Good afternoon.
You know, guests, families, staff, the end of the school year is a time in which we tend to want to celebrate the excitements of graduation. The end of the school year is also a time in which those who are prepared to retire demonstrate a little bit of nervousness, reflect a lot on their experiences, and begin to think about the future. What I want to do simply by acknowledging these individuals is just remind you of their willingness to serve, their willingness to give of themselves freely, their willingness to support this community, but more importantly, their willingness to invest in the children and this organization. So having said that, Please join me in acknowledging, and we'll save our applause because we have a pretty good list, which makes me sad yet excited. Ms. Daisy Askin from the Transportation Department, Mr. Robert Atchison from Rehoboth Road Middle School, Ms. Rhonda Atkinson from Cowan Elementary School, Ms. Diana Atwater, Kennedy Road Middle School, Ms. Cheryl Bannister, Moreland Road, Vanessa Beasley, Kennedy Road, Vicky Cardell, Carver Road Middle, Keitha Dawkins, Jackson Road Elementary, Carol Edison, Transportation Department, Sylvester Elkins, Spalding High School, Tina Fowler, Crescent School, Julie Green, Beaverbrook Elementary, Yvonne Harris, Ann Street Elementary, Donna Hightower, Transportation, Jimmy Hightower, Transportation, Dr. Kennedy Hope, Griffin High School, Janice Jones, Central Office, Dr. Kawana Kennedy, Central Office, Denise Moore Jones, Beaverbrook Elementary School. At this time, I'll also ask a future retiree, Dr. Kawana Kennedy, to share the rest of these names with you.
Robin Kennard, Rehoboth Road Middle School. Command Sergeant Major Julius Lang, Griffin High School. Gwendolyn Langford, Moreland Road Elementary School. Marsha Lassiter, Future Road Elementary School. Kamar Walker Law, Moore Elementary School. Barbara McCoo, Jackson Road Elementary School. Tracy McGee, Jordan Hill Elementary School. Sonia McIntyre, Moore Elementary School. Joni Mullins, Central Office. David Owen, Main State Academy. Jean Pinkelton, Transportation Department. Lula Jean Reese, Moreland Road Elementary School. James Smith, Central Office. Wanda Spear, Crescent Elementary School. Melanie Stansel, Special Education Department. Angela Stewart, Central Office. Jacqueline Taylor, Cowan Road Elementary School. And Bonita Willis, Jordan Hill Elementary School.
Please join me in acknowledging these individuals who've given of themselves tirelessly for the benefit of our students, for the benefit of ourselves, and for the benefit of this organization. Thank you very much to each retiree.
Thank you to all of our honorees tonight. We commend our students, our teachers, our star students, our star teachers, our FCCLA winners, our GRCCA recognition, our finance diploma seal, which is so critical to our system, and our retirees. Thank you, retirees, for answering the call to teach, for giving your faithful service to the Griffin-Spalding County School System. We are indebted to you for your service. Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cook. At this time, we would take a 5-minute break. If that's okay with the board, other board members, to allow others to leave, and we'll pick back up, finish the meeting out. But we thank you all. If you have to leave, we thank you for being with us. We don't take it lightly. We always are glad to see citizens and scholars participate in this process because it's your process. So we thank you on behalf of the board. Now we'll take a 5-minute break. I hadn't looked at this list.
I mean, it's already 5, and whoever they got to school, somebody else gotta start to leave. It's fine.
Yeah.
I know. Can you take a picture of me and Brianna? Come here. I'm so, I got my mask on. I was. You gonna make it? Andrew Sue. What's up, brother? We're gonna write her a note.
You know she's the one that made the cupcakes. Yes, she is. I dropped one on the floor, and I picked it up and still. That's very true.
Good, how you doing? Oh. Well, I recognize the name. I was trying to recognize the face.
Yeah. Yeah, he is now. And so, you know, we got some folks that feel as though people are using curriculum as a stepping stone. That happens. Yeah. Oh, what? Absolutely. That's a no-brainer. Yep. It's kind of like the NFL draft. If they call, you go.
You know, coach yourself, aren't you? What is, oh, really?
Yes, I agree. It's not the popular thing, but it's the right thing. Okay. Okay. Let me put it in this one. Okay. Let me just write it down.
You know, Colonel Jones, used to be the superintendent. He's down at the hill now. Yeah. Yeah. First and I played. He was a couple of years ago. I was a fat offensive guard, and he was a very fast running back. He taught me to run that butt off the line. He's going to stick that helmet right back. No, really fast. I thought like Curtis.
All right, Mr. Holmes. We ready.
Ms. Brown, Ms. Cook. Woo. We'll get back into meeting mode. Do we have anyone for public comment, Ms. Wright? One, and they're virtual. Okay. Do we have a name? Say that again. Brian. Do we have an address for Mr. Farrell? Okay, thank you. Okay, we have Mr. Farrell on. Okay, I see him. Go ahead, Mr. Farrell. Well, before you do, let me just give you a synopsis of the the board policy on speaking. Any individual desiring to speak is requested to give his or her name, address, and the group, if any, that he or she is representing. The speaker should speak to the board, not the audience. The presentation should be brief as possible, yet should include all information, pertinent information by the speaker. Unless an extension of time is granted, each speaker shall not exceed 5 minutes. If one spokesperson has presented a matter, it is not necessary for the other to repeat the same idea. Also, questions, suggestions, proposal, or criticism which have been presented verbally should not be submitted when practical in writing and should be signed by an individual or spokesperson of the group appearing before the board. And lastly, person appearing before the board are reminded as a point of information that members of the board are without authority to act independently as individuals in official matters. With that being said, you may proceed, Mr. Farrell.
Hello, my name is Brian Farrell. I live at 405 Musgrove Road in Griffin, Georgia. Good evening to everyone in person and online. I want to thank you for the opportunity to address this Board of Education. I live in District 5, and my children go to school at Jackson Road Elementary in District 2. I am sad that my children attend a school where my vote for Board of Education has no effect. I would like to hear what the Board of Education plans to do to realign the districts with respect to schools within their district. Furthermore, I'd like to few lines from an amazing speech from arguably the greatest orator in our nation's history. 50 years ago, the great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon, light of hope to many million Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak at the end of the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. I quote that to say this: 60 years later, we've turned this corner by evidence of the sheer number of black-owned Fortune 500 companies, as well as our former Vice President, Barack Obama, our former President, Barack Obama, our current Vice President, Kamala Harris, and the gentlemen that sit within our Board of Education, as well as our Superintendent. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Negro community must not lead us to a distrust of all white people, for many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny, and that they have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. And as we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, right down in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and little white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I too share this dream. I pray every board member shares Dr. King's dream. If you will go to any of our schools, you will see exactly what Dr. King's dream does, what he sacrificed for, and what he died for. Our children do not see color, they see friends. I ask you to please reconsider the BOM resolution, as our schools have a state-approved curriculum which teaches all the facts, good and bad, of the civil rights struggle, from the very beginning of slavery until the civil rights movement, all the way until current events. We need not sow seeds of hatred and division with the proposed BLM resolution. I urge the Spalding County Board of Education to abandon this resolution and move forward and not go back as Dr. King suggested.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell, for your commentation. And do you desire a response from the school board? Oh, okay, all right. Thank you for your commentation, Mr. Farrell. Do you desire a response from the governance team, which we will do in writing if you so desire? I think I need to use sign language, line. Is he muted? No, he's not. Can you hear me, Mr. Farrell?
Pardon me, sir, I cannot understand you.
Okay. Can you hear me, though? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I was asking you, did you desire a response from the governance team? If so, we will do so in writing to you.
Yes, sir.
Oh.
That would be fantastic.
Okay, well, we will have our superintendent, Mr. Keith Simmons, send a response to you in writing on behalf of the governance team.
That would be great. That would be outstanding.
Okay, thank you again for your concerns and sharing your interests.
Pardon me, sir?
Thank you again for sharing your concerns and your interests.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Yes, sir.
I really appreciate everyone on the board. Y'all have a blessed evening.
Okay, you do the same. Next board member, we have our consent agenda items. I hope you had a chance to review them. Could we get a motion to accept as presented?
So moved.
Got a motion by Ms. Cook. Can we get a second?
Second.
Got a second by Mr. Dawson. All in favor, raise your right hand, please. 5-0. Thank you so much. All right, action items. We turn it over to Mr. Keith Simmons.
Thank you, Chairman Holmes, members of the board. As you know, we have taken on the task of filling the recently filed vacancy of principal at Griffin High School. Within the last few weeks, we have completed the application and the interview process. I am pleased to share with you that we had some outstanding candidates. It is my intent tonight to bring before you a recommendation, but before I do so, I'd like to give you a little bit of background about Mr. Herbert Chambers. Mr. Chambers began his career in 2002 as a sixth grade science teacher. He has served in middle school settings, alternative education settings, as well as high school setting. Mr. Chambers has served in the role as a teacher, an athletics coach, an athletics director, behavior specialist, and most recently, assistant principal. In the last 6 years, Mr. Herbert Chambers has served as assistant principal of both Houston County High School and Veterans High School, respectively. Both schools have been designated as schools of excellence by the Georgia Department of Education while he has worked in those schools. I'll share with you a comment from one of the references from for Mr. Chambers. It says that he's an awesome school leader, and I quote, "would love for my kids to attend a school that he leads," end quote. I'll share with you one last time that Mr. Chambers' application process, his interview process included a panel interview with members of the central office staff. It concluded with his having the opportunity to go onto Griffin High School's campus and interact with teachers, visit the school, observe instruction, observe normal day-to-day operations. I then had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Chambers for about an hour and ask him about his ambitions, both personally and professionally, as it relates to that experience. I had the opportunity to get to know a little bit about Mr. Chambers. I'll share with you, after conducting a surprise pop-up visit onto his campus and having the opportunity to observe him work with students, having the opportunity to observe him work with staff, it became clear and evident to me that Mr. Chambers was someone who could help lead Griffin High School into the future while also developing the relationships necessary for students and staff to prosper. Having said that, it is my recommendation that we hire Mr. Herbert Chambers to be the next principal of Griffin High School.
All right, board members, you've heard from the superintendent and you've heard his recommendation. Are there any questions or is there any discussions? None? Go ahead, Mr. Brown.
I just want to say to Mr. Simmons, the superintendent, thank you so much for your updates and letting the board know about the process. Previously, I always said that if the superintendent brought a recommendation that did not involve scholars and did not involve teachers, I would vote no. But I am very pleased to say today that happened. And so we're excited as to where our school district is going. We're excited that we have a great leader going to Griffin High School, and I would like to make the motion.
Okay, board members, we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Brown. Do we have a second?
Second.
We got a second by Ms. McDonough and Mr. Dawson. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, 5-0. At this time, I want to offer Mr. Chambers an opportunity to come to the podium over to my right, his left, and offer a few words to the board and those online and present.
Good evening. I would like to first start by thanking the board members here that are present and Mr. Simmons for giving me the opportunity to stand before you all today. I'm honored, I'm humbled, just to see my name up there. I don't know if you feel excited or scared or what, but I'm excited to be in here. I'm excited to be in here, y'all. I am a pure example of what education can do for a young man. I came from a small rural town in Gordon, Georgia. My mother's a retired teacher. My father was killed in the military, and she promoted education to me constantly. My focus while coming here in Griffin-Spalding County is to make sure that our school is safe, it's productive, and it's a place that is respected. I am a person of character. I like to do things the right way, and I pride myself upon that. I am honored to be here and honored to serve you all here. Thank you all for having me.
All right, thank you, Ms. Chambers. Also, we're going to see if we can get you on that offensive line to help out the football team, too. All right, next on the agenda, we have presentations and discussion items. First up, we have Dr. Kiwana Kennedy, the strategic plan update.
Good evening, Mr. Simmons and members of the board. I'm excited to be before you this evening to provide you an update for our strategic plan development process. We continue to engage in the work that supports our mission, empower students to graduate college and career ready, and that supports our vision of being an agent of change, transforming our students into future-ready learners and contributing members of society. As you're aware, this is our current strategic planning map, strategy map for our current 5-year strategic plan that is scheduled to come to a close on June 30th of this year. And so in preparation for developing our next 5-year strategic plan, we have started that work by having a community engagement session that we held last evening. This meeting was virtually with 50 stakeholders. It was held last night from 6 o'clock to 7:30 p.m. Mr. Simmons, our superintendent, greeted our stakeholders and provided an overview of our school system. From there, two GSBA facilitators, Lynetta Jackson and Steve Barker, presented an overview of the process and facilitated the discussion. Important feedback was gathered from the stakeholders using a SWOT analysis approach where strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats were identified. This gives you an idea as to the stakeholder participation that of who were invited to participate in this outstanding meeting that we had last evening. We had 25 internal stakeholders. There you see 10 teachers, 2 counselors, a media specialist, paraprofessional, 4 school level administrators, front office clerk, custodian, transportation staff member, social worker, district office administrator, nutrition, and our ESOL parent liaison representative. We also had 25 external stakeholders, 10 parents, and you can see those divided out by 4 elementary, 2 middle, 2 high, and we also had 2 advisory parents, 10 high school students, 3 from AZ Kelsey, 4 from Griffin High, and 4 from Spalding High School, and 5 community members, and you see the breakdown there: pastor, a business owner, local lawyer, EPI representative, and the City of Griffin employee were invited to participate in the meeting we held last evening.
Was that lawyer Mrs. Shepherd?
No, it was not.
Okay, thank God.
Our next steps, as we've engaged in this process, to kick it off on yesterday, we launched a survey today to gather feedback from all stakeholders that went out on our social media sites. It also, there was a parent link sent out to all of our families as well as to our staff members to gather similar information as we did and provided at the community engagement meeting to provide everyone an opportunity to provide feedback. The discussion questions from the community engagement meeting and the online survey were developed and provided by GSBA. The survey has been launched, and it will be using the SurveyMonkey platform. GSBA did provide us a link for the survey that you will see out that we have published. It will also be found and placed on our district website as well. GSBA will compile all of the notes from the community engagement meeting as well as the feedback from the online survey, and those will be brought back to Mr. Simmons and the Board of Education to review those reported findings that they will compile from that feedback. Following that, that will be coming shortly, probably in the next 3 to 4 weeks, will be the establishment of a strategic planning team that will be made up of 25 to 30 stakeholders. Those are the groups, following groups: teachers, principals, classified staff, community members, parents, students, local business leaders, central office staff, and board members will serve as a part of the strategic planning team. And Mr. Simmons is in discussions with GSBA in confirming that date, and we're underway in getting that information and that session planned in the next 3 to 4 weeks that we will be moving forward. Questions?
Any questions, board members? All right, thank you, Dr. Kennedy. We have Superintendent's entry plan update by Mr. Keith Simmons.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, board members. I'll be honest with you. I'm not used to standing at this podium and presenting It's been a minute, so bear with me if I lose my bearings. I wanted to bring you a brief update with regards to some things that I've had the opportunity to experience, the things that I've had the opportunity to see and hear relative to my first 40 days as a superintendent of schools here in Griffin-Spalding County. I'll start with our vision and our mission. As you see here, our mission is to empower students to graduate college and career ready. Our vision is that we will be a system, we are a system that is to be an agent of change, transforming our students into future-ready learners, contributing members of society. With regards to the district's strategy map, this conversation is going to encompass all 12 of the strategic objectives and all 4 of the strategic goals within the strategy map, paying most attention to organizational effectiveness, family and community engagement, as well as student performance. Here is a depiction of the goal areas that were listed in my my entry plan. I'm going to frame the rest of this conversation around each of these 5 goal areas. I'm simply going to reiterate the things that we've either been able to do, we've been able to see, or we've not yet done relative to my commitment in the first 100 days. Starting with goal area 1, governance team, I'll share with you that I'm pleased to have your participation in codifying the entry plan. And what I mean by that, for those who are out in virtual world, my entry plan was not developed by me alone. This was a partnership or collaborative output of myself as well as this board to ensure that the things that I was striving to do, the things that I was striving to learn, also aligned with what the board had in its vision for my first few months on the job. I'll share with you that we had a successful board retreat. That was the opportunity for me to have the entire district staff, senior cabinet, as well as the governance team in the same place to begin to establish the relationships necessary as a governance team to help move the school system forward. And so I'm appreciative of that. I've had conversations around an evaluation instrument that helps to guide and inform the things that I will be responsible for so that I can ensure that that information is cascaded down throughout the district. It's not going to be merely my evaluation, but it's going to be somewhat of a roadmap for myself, for the senior cabinet and their direct reports relative to how we function in central office. And I'm pleased to have begun those conversations with members of the board. Most importantly, the opportunity to establish recurring meetings and communication. I am thankful for the channels that we use to ensure that we are creating clarity between one another, whether it be individually or collectively. I'll share with you briefly, you heard from Dr. Kennedy relative to the long-term strategic planning process. I'm excited about that work, and I'm excited about your participation and involvement in that work. A heavy lift for the staff, and we've already began these conversations, is a policy review calendar. We want to ensure that the policies that govern the school system are reviewed in a timely manner. It's also including your voice, your perspectives, as well as the staff, so that we can understand the how as you help us determine the what. Goal area 2 speaks about student success. I'll be honest with you, I've had a blast. Visiting classrooms has been fun. Having the opportunity to get to know some of our students has been even more fun. Working directly with students has been the highlight of my 40 days as superintendent. These photos are just a few of the opportunities that I'm most grateful for because they depict opportunities for me to engage our students in their current learning experience. These are the photos that I reflect upon as we think about what learning could look like, what school looks like moving forward. These are the faces that I reflect upon as we talk about and think about ways that we're able to reimagine education in Griffin-Spalding County schools. I'll share with you that I've had the opportunity to visit every school in our organization. I'm pleased with the candor that I've received, whether it be from our instructional staff, our support staff, or our principals. I've had the opportunity to speak directly with students about what they're learning, how they're learning, and what it takes for them to demonstrate that learning. You and I know, those out in the virtual world know, Trying to do both has been difficult, whether it be a simultaneous learning or simultaneous teaching. Those are curveballs that we are adjusting to every single day, and I commend both our families and our students, as well as our staff, for the resiliency that I've seen in my visits with the schools. We're still scheduling school-based listening sessions. Those things I'm hopeful will be able to take place. I think I have, Ms. Ray, 3 more, maybe 2 more to do, and I will have had the opportunity to complete a listening session with every school in the organization. So the difference between the listening session and the walkthrough, the listening session is just me and that staff. Me asking clarifying questions, they're being honest with me about what's working well, what we need to work on, and how we can get better together. So I'm thankful for the time that schools have given me in that process. Goal area 3, the culture, the climate, and the community. This is a big deal for us, and later on in a slide I'll show you where there has been some intentionality around this work, but also that intentionality has enabled me or not enabled me to make the marks in some other areas. But I've spoken with several of our civic organizations. I've had the opportunity to meet and greet some of our retired educators. I've had the opportunity to meet with each of the district and the county and the city's department heads. Had the opportunity to have conversations with the county manager, the mayor, the city manager, about what we can do together to move our community forward. They understand our perspectives. I'm wanting to make sure that I understand theirs, and collectively, I do believe we have the opportunity to do some great things on behalf of everyone involved. I'll share with you that I've given a priority to my understanding how we can leverage our partnership with Archway. That was something that I wanted to commit to early on, and I'm proud to say that my understanding about that partnership and ways that we can leverage that partnership are moving forward, and I'm excited about that. We'll continue to reach out and ensure that we are represented in all of the local outreach organizations. We'll continue to make sure that I've had the opportunity to interface with each locally elected or appointed official. I think it's important that I understand the nuances. You're going to hear me talk about coherence. And one of the things that gets in the way of cohering is not necessarily knowing where the pieces fit or how the pieces fit. So that's an external priority that I have, as well as an internal priority that I have. Goal area 4, I'll be honest with you. While I'm an advocate for educational equity, I have not given a lot of time to the efforts and the outputs relative to equity. I share that with you right here. 2 months ago, I talked to you about the SAM process, where I track the things that I do relative to instructional management. What this reads is that less than 5 hours in my 40 days have I spent focused on things that are regarding equity in our school system. This is both a level of insight and a reminder. In order for me to make change, I've got to spend time. At the same time, I'll share with you, I've spent more than 30 hours talking about or applying accountability measures and conversations, both to myself as well as the staff. Similarly, we've talked about things relative to our organizational capacity and our organizational culture. You've heard me say we're only as good as our capacity. And so part of my work over the last 40 days is trying to determine our capacity, stay within that capacity, or figure out where we need to grow within that capacity. So while I have not had an opportunity to make any significant change relative to key actions in the work relative to equity in our school system, I want you to know I get it, I understand it, and I own it. At the same time, I am comfortable with the learning and the growth that I've had around accountability, around org charts, not org charts, but organizational culture and capacity, working with you directly as a governance team. Those are the things that I'm spending my time on. This is just one of the features that those 10 SAM principles have at their disposal to help them chart how they're spending their time. Goal area 5, organizational capacity. CFO Jones is going to come and talk to you a little bit about the budget preview. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal. You've heard me talk about reimagining or re-imaging the way that we do school. obviously, resource allocation is a critical component in that regard. A lot of our time has been spent on this budget, what's in it, what's not, and if it's not in the budget, how might we provide those supports to our schools? Establishing a recurring strategic meeting both with school leaders as well as district leaders helps to ensure that there's a level of cohesion so that the conversations that we're having are conversations that are both relevant and strategic. And I'm thankful for the staff in their adjustments, enabling and allowing me to come in and in some ways disrupting. While I try not to merely disrupt, I do want to make sure that I'm able to take advantage of the limited amount of time that I have within the first 100 days to ensure that all of the hundreds of days subsequent are days that we can demonstrate our growth and our commitment to ensuring high levels of learning for our students. Findings and next steps. I'll share with you for the board that's looking at this screen. I try not to get into a deficit mindset, so I call these assets. You heard me talk about coherence. In many ways, the strategic plan that we currently have is striving for coherence. Some of the systems that have bore out of that strategic plan gets in the way of our demonstrating coherence. We're going back to revisit how might we restructure some of our systems to ensure that the pieces of the puzzle fit and that people understand where they fit. Another key point is clarity. Again, in some ways, our efforts to demonstrate clarity still doesn't yield the results that we desire. So I still see that we have an understanding for the need of clarity. Now we have to ensure that what we're trying to communicate in a clear manner is received the way that we're trying to communicate it. That's why it may look like those are deficits, or it may look like those may be problems of practice. I see those as assets because they're present. What we've got to do is maximize them. The last one that I'll share with you is the turnover at the implementation level. You and I have talked about ways that we can mitigate turnover. And when I say at the implementation level, in most cases I am talking about in the classroom. Many of the initiatives that have been implemented to improve processes aren't necessarily able to be implemented with fidelity because those in which we're implementing them with aren't there to see the implementation through. I know I just said a lot. Said differently, we're going to focus on ensuring that we can attract, recruit, induct, develop, and keep the people that we want in this organization so that when we implement new programs and initiatives, those that we start with will be those that are there at the finish line. And right now, we're not seeing enough of that, and that's something we're going to take head on. You can see the opportunities there, the strategic plan that Dr. Kennedy talked about, our opportunities relative to being reliable, doing the things that we said we'd do, and say the things that need to be said so that people understand where we're going. Our human capital is an opportunity. We have the people. We've got to make sure that they understand what's expected of them. We've got to make sure that they have the resources to do the jobs that we're asking them to do. One of the things that I'm starting to hear about, those who have the most resiliency were built here in Griffin. The teachers that I hear the most positive from are graduates of this school system. Those who have worked in this organization the longest are graduates of this school system. I've only learned that in 40 days, and that may not be a significant number. What I want you to take away from those three words, growing our own, I believe that's an opportunity for us to sustain the types of outcomes that we desire. We're going to find a way to grow the kinds of employees that we desire. We're going to find a way to ensure that we have the capacity within our organization to, again, attract, recruit, induct, develop, and keep those kinds of people in this organization for the betterment of our students and our community at large. The last piece that I'll share with you. You heard Dr. Kennedy, you're good, Mr. Harper. You heard Dr. Kennedy talk about the mission and the vision. I'll be honest with you. While we have a mission and a vision, I'm not sure how much it does in terms of guiding our work. I'm not sure how many of our employees are able to tell you what it is. So moving forward, what we're going to do, every time we present anything about this school system, whether it be in this school system or outside of this city, people will hear and state the vision statement and the mission statement, because you can't lead what you don't know. The second piece of that is, after 40 days, I believe, regardless of the title, the role, or the level, every employee has the capacity to be professional, be accountable, and communicate effectively. That's the thing that I will not negotiate on when it comes to our employees. I'll work through some other areas, but I expect all of us, every day, whether we're in the building or not, representing this organization, to be professional, be accountable, and communicate effectively. The last thing that I'll do is share with you this results pyramid. You've heard me talk about, since the 1st of March, creating great experiences for our students and our staff. As this pyramid illustrates, experiences create beliefs. Those beliefs lead to actions. Those actions will give you the results that that system has created. We're going to ensure that we create the types of experiences that leads to the beliefs that we want people to have relative to the actions necessary to move the school system forward. In the first 40 days, that's what I've learned, that's what I've seen, that's where we're going. I'll take your questions if you have any.
No question, but you're gonna have to address one last group, and we're gonna save that for last. And knowing, I think everybody kind of know that you're a Tampa Bay guy.
Yes, sir. Go Bucks.
And we setting up a meeting with the Atlanta Fan Club.
I understand.
We're gonna see how you come out on that meeting.
I hope you bring a lot of them, sir.
Mr. Leader, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Superintendent, what do you think was your major takeaway from your look, listen, and learn?
A major takeaway, just one.
Or several?
Several. Let me see if I can do 2 or 3. Internally, I believe we have the people and the structures to be the type of school system that others want to be like. I'm not sure that the structure is conducive yet, or the people are in the appropriate place yet. But our employees work hard. They believe in the students that we're serving, and they desire to be here. That's a start. Externally, this is a community who wants and desires a school system that they can be proud of. At the same time, this is a community that may not be as informed as they could be about the outputs of the school system. That's a takeaway. So you heard me talk about clarity. In some ways, there are still people who just don't know the offerings that we're providing for our students, and they don't know their opportunities to partner with us to either expand those offerings or improve those offerings. Again, we've got to figure out what channel is best suited to close that gap. There are 2.
I would encourage each board member, however you choose to do it, to maybe set up a meeting time with Mr. Simmons. I know myself and Vice Chair McDonald, we're meeting with him on the 11th, and so I know I'll reserve my questions and comments, and I think Ms. McDonald will as well. But I encourage the other 3 to do the same, to just meet with Mr. Simmons, to just sit down and just have a convo, and an in-depth convo, and just see exactly what he did learn, what he did see during this entry plan, this time. So with that, are there any more questions or anything? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Simmons.
Thank you, board members.
Next, we have our March financial report by Mr. Byron Jones.
Is it financial report or budget update?
Well, we're gonna let Mr. Jones do both. We're gonna let him do the financial report and the budget preview. FY 2022 budget preview.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Chairman, I tell you what, that's really hard to follow that speech now. I'm going to do the best I can to do it justice, but I did want to start off. I was sitting here reflecting 1 year ago tonight. I think you all approved me
Yes, sir.
in the board meeting. I was sitting down in Darien, Georgia, watching live down in the Brunswick area. So again, it's been a year. It's been a fun-filled. I feel like I need to wear my Nikes or something. I've been running, but I really enjoyed it, and I appreciate you all's confidence in me. I appreciate what we're learning from you, and I think there's a lot of good things in store for the school district. So what we'll do, y'all know how it is when you put me last all the time now, so I'm going to do my best to try to go through this pretty quick. So the financial report, I've been telling y'all, is this loaded up by chance? Do you want it loaded up? Have you got it in paper? If you got it in paper, we can run through that. I think the other one I know is loaded up.
Yes, yes.
We went ahead and we're going to make some changes. We're going to have to put the majority of the changes on that off to July 1, but I did change the last 2 to 3 pages of the report to make some progress on that. We've been tied up in budget. So let's go through this right quick and make a few comments. The main thing is our general operating account, general fund is still on the revenue and expense side performing over budget on revenues, under budget on expenses. So both of those are trending in the right direction. This is on the page 1. Legal expenses, you saw that was come in low for the month. So there's your amount on that. I think the other information was forwarded, should have been forwarded to y'all to review. Again, the CARES money, we're drawing that down every single month. That is really helping our cash flow. We received, I think it was $1.4 million in CARES reimbursements a week ago for all of the bonus payments that were paid. So we've actually gotten that money back in. Obviously, as I've talked to you all before, the only thing we're kind of on the hook for is anything that we funded locally that was not for reimbursement. So we'll still have to make some entries to reclassify those expenditures. But about 1.5 million we've already received. Our capital projects, again, I tell you all the top couple, not a lot of checks have been written on that in the month of March. East Blast was actually down in February for $889,000. But I've already gotten the one the other day for retail month of March, and it's $1,114,000. So I don't know if there was a cutoff issue in getting that to us, but it looks like they'll balance both out, trending above $1 million. And nutrition, as I always tell you, $1.221 million. They have basically used up their fund balance for the year. To remind you, in this current year, there was not a budget for moving money over from general fund to fund any kind of deficit. So if we have to, it'll be unbudgeted, but I will do that and ask you for a budget amendment in the month of June. In the budget preview, I'll talk a little bit more about what we talked about last week and what's coming in the future that will help hopefully prop that up, not be an issue in the future. And I'm just going to make a couple of comments. I'm on page 2. I wanted to point you to the general fund column, and I want to make sure y'all have a good understanding of this Excel spreadsheet. So general fund, this is the balance sheet. So this kind of brings in cash, investments, and what our accounts payables, deferred revenue might be to get to an ending fund balance. So if you look just at this page, look down at the bottom, you're in the $30 to $31 million fund balance range, and that's through the month of March. That's always a moving target. If you go up a couple of lines where it says fund equity, fund balance is $30,087,000. If you have the ability to look in the formula, what that is the ending fund balance for FY 20, June 30th of 20, which was approximately $19.5 million, and then you pull in what's on page 3, how we're performing above fund balance for the current year. That's another $10 million. You add those two together and you're getting $30 million. So at any given time, when I say fund balance, what you need to be worried about is we ended last year at 19 to 20 million, and that's an unaudited balance I'm giving you. It changed a little bit in the audit report. So if you budgeted to eat into that a little bit by two point some million this year, we ought to be around 17.5 or 16. If we perform better in our general fund than we budgeted, then that actual number will be better. But we always, people like me can tell you the worst case scenario. So just want you to understand that. Is there a question that, anybody got a question on fund balance that you might want to ask? Right now? So right now, is that number right there, 30,087,000? But again, that will come down for this reason. In the summer, for the educators that are 10-month employees, 190, paid over 12 months or 230, we have to accrue those salaries, which just means we post them in FY21. They're paid technically in FY22, July and August, but we have to bring those monies back in. Some districts that I've worked at in the past, we go ahead and accrue those salaries in the month of March, April, or May so that you as a board see a lower fund balance. Some districts choose to do it more on a cash basis, and you see your your fund balance higher during the year, and they make a bulk entry in the summer, and it brings it way down. So you're going to see that because that's the way the district's been handling that entry. So that 30 is going to come down to 18, 20, 21, 17, somewhere in that range, because you got to remember you got May, this is March's report. You got April, May, June, July, and August. You got 5 months to go. So that's kind of layman's terms. Do y'all understand what I'm talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So page 3, that's your general fund operating account. If you look in the year-to-date column at the bottom, you'll see we're 10.7 million performing to the good right now. So that's the number that's rolling into that column on the prior sheet. As we flip back through, I just wanted to point you to the very last 2 pages and see if y'all understand what I'm trying to show you there. There's 2 graphs. I tried to kind of amend our presentation on SPLOST receipts and see if you like that. I hope it's not hard to read. I wanted to give you a little color graph to go with it. So we're in SPLOST 6. We're in year 1 of SPLOST 6. So there's no comparative data from year 2 to year 1. So that's your receipts in a month. If you go to the second, go scroll down one more chart, I gave you the 5-year history for SPLOST 5. So you can kind of see, we may quit showing that once we lap a year on SPLOST 6. That'll kind of give you more of a visual than just putting those numbers straight down the page. May be hard to read of what you've seen in the past. Has anybody got any questions? Does that make sense what I'm showing you there?
And we base,
Compare.
I'm telling you, I'm using every technology skill from Spalding High School's intern, who I only got for about 20 more days. I'm maxing her out, and she likes doing this kind of stuff.
and we based the SPLOST off of 850 coming in each month, or was it 800?
I think it was 740 was the
740?
number. Yeah. Okay. And I can get you an update on that. So, again, on this SPLOST 6, I put a little bullet down there thanking the community for, it looked like November 5th of 2019, you all had an election. And from what I understand, it was a great success. I'm assuming most precincts were won, et cetera, because, I mean, I think it was 60-70% that it carried. So we want to thank the community for that. So that's all I've got on the financial report. Anybody got any questions on that?
Any question, board members?
No, sir.
Okay, on our slide deck, if y'all got the paper.
Yes, sir.
Lonnie's going to pull this up. So let me start by saying you're going to hear that some of this will be repeat of last week because we wanted to preempt you. So we wanted to get some terminology on out there. When I start going with this, I want you to paper. I'm going to prompt you, with the superintendent's help, to 2 particular slides within this that we would like to get some feedback in an open session about. For transparency purposes, we're asking you for your feedback. So then on the very last side, you'll see, I'm going to give you a budget book that y'all are used to getting. Everybody, every district don't get a budget book. Well, we're going to do our best to give you what you're used to seeing. But there's some embedded data that we need to get some feedback before I change numbers all over the place. We're still reconciling some data. So there'll be 2 slides. You'll see them here in just a second. So again, on that mission statement, my goal is to definitely be number 3, communicate effectively. I don't want to leave this podium without a question that's asked or identified that I can go back or provide the answer to the superintendent to get back with you. If you need to digest some of this and then get back with us before the public hearing next week, that's fine as well. But as quick as we can get some feedback, it's what we need. Professional and accountable, that's what we, the accountability definitely is what we're after. The third slide, I'm focusing on my goal tonight. Second column, third bullet down, ensure fiscal responsibility and accountability. And sometimes you have to tell people stuff they don't want to hear, but we want to be transparent. We want to try to accommodate, but you know, in a lot of the requests that you'll see, there have been some yeses, there have been some nos, there have been some wait and sees. So we'll show you that in just a second. So this is one of the slides that I'll just speak for a few words on budget priorities, and then we want to just pause a second because Superintendent talked about his entry plan, goals of the district, and things of that nature, but this is a smaller subset basically for budget priorities FY22. So staffing, and these are generic terms, but I want to make a couple of comments from a historical perspective for me. Benchmarking will like size school systems. I can tell you from history, again, this is my third district. In one of my districts, which I won't name, I entered it and there was a closed mindset. They didn't want to know what other people did, et cetera. And we need to grow from people. We need to see what other people are doing. I mean, the DOE's not, they're trying to put out stuff and guidance to everybody. So I haven't seen that here. I've seen, we try to go out and we try to benchmark. We try to, or in the process of finding out what other people do and taking best practices. So I think in our priorities, that's something we want to do and make sure that always stays in the front of our mind. Growth mindset, you know, I look at that in my own department, and I've even got a request or so in here. I mean, I want to grow myself. I want to grow personally. Professionally, you know, we operate in a lot of ways, and this is a year in on my assessment now. I'm not speaking for him. I'm telling you what mine is. We still function in some ways like we are a 3,500 student school system in some of the ways we operate. Some of the ways we operate, we might be a 12,000. But we are 9 to 10 to 11, if you can't, depending on if you count in pre-K. I mean, we're a pretty big operation, and you see that number, it's $150 million. I mean, that's a lot of money. So we just got to have that in our mind when we're making decisions. Proactive instead of reactive is always something we're concerned with. Second priority will be technology, and
Mr.
you all.
Can we back up
Yes,
to that? And my question and my I don't want to say request, but I would like to see it. I'm used to the benchmark system working in healthcare. We have my concern is I see a decline in our student population, and you know, and in the healthcare setting, you look at patient census. That's how you measure or how you set your staffing. And what I would like to see, if you could get it provided for us, I think the board needs to know it as well, is a correlation between staffing levels, positions that we have people in compared to the student population. You understand what I'm saying? And because I see the student population coming down, but I don't see a direct correlation with staffing. If we have less students, it would be my ideology that you would kind of re-gauge your staffing level. But I'm just curious as to see what priorities are we feeling, and how our staffing correlates with our student population.
Right, and I know that, and again, this is our intention to get some discussion. So we do analysis on that. We do student counts, and that's where you got the allotment preliminary thing that we put out. There's also the ramp formula that we work through that looks at more of an equity-based formula to give back or to equalize, for lack of a better term. And then you've also got the component that you already know about, where the student enrollment is coming down for next year, but the board has agreed to leave the teacher allotments whole. So depending on the question, and we can get you the data, but I know for FY22, that's going to be kind of hard to compare if we've made that recommendation and you approved it, we didn't give them contracts and all, but we can definitely get that to you. But I know for FY22, if you look at teacher counts versus, if you're talking about admin, that's how, we can do that too. We can look at how we're staffed. You'll be provided a current staffing, I think, chart in the book, what you usually get.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Okay. Now I'm just going to whiz through these, so if y'all want to stop, just stop me. Technology, obviously, that's a priority. We know that from this year and how important that is, but the instructional and administrative technology, both from an efficiency and student experience standpoint. The virtual learning, we've had conversations here in this meeting last few weeks about some of that from a differing instructional model standpoint, takeaways from virtual learning, COVID experience, and what can we use through virtual learning, or what models can we use to improve instruction in the future. Student supports, we've talked about that as far as allocations to support extended learning. There's some plans, I think, that are going on now, or some requests coming in for things in the summer. Obviously, there's some extended learning that goes on through the year as well. Mr. Simmons has talked a lot about cohesiveness in the district. Are we operating in the same manner throughout all schools? And then professional learning, I know there will be a request in the budget for that, a new platform for that. I see Ms. Crawl here; she can smile about that one. That's important. I mean, within your profession, finding out what others are doing, best practices, benchmarking, and how can we be a model for other systems to look at for how we're teaching and learning here in Griffin-Spalding. So, from a priority standpoint, before I go to more numbers, I'm gonna pause. I don't know if the superintendent, I don't know if you've got anything you want to say about that. Those are 6 areas that he wanted us to be focusing and having conversations on as a cabinet.
Well, I'm glad to see number 3, because we've seen how some students prefer the non-traditional school methodology. They don't want to be in person. They do well virtually. So I think we need to make sure we have some discussion about how school will look. We don't need to be working. I hear people say all the time, I'll be glad when we get back to normal. No, it's not going to be that normal that you knew. It's going to be a new normal. I mean, in all society, all aspects of society, it's a new society. So I think the school system, our school system, have to adapt to some of those experiences that we've had with COVID-19. Learning and teaching and learning, just look a little different now. And we need to see how we can accommodate those that prefer that new normal going forward. Because I think everybody, for some reason, I'm not going to say everybody. I don't have any stats to say everybody, but I think some people are thinking we're going to get back and we're trying to get rid of doing virtual, just do in person. But I think that's going to be with us for a long time. I oftentimes tell people that's been in the college realm for forever, for a while. I'm not going to say forever, but for a while, people have been doing virtual. It wasn't my forte. I only took one virtual class, online class in college. I'm old school. I got to see you, I got to talk to you, and got to hold the book in my hand and that sort of stuff, But in this technology-driven world, we got these young people, man. They just prefer, that laptop or whatever. They do well because they are so technical, in what they do now. So I think that discussion about how we're going to do school from what we've learned from COVID-19 experiences, I think that's going to be a well worth conversation.
I too like the word proactive that's on this list. I like the fact that we're looking at things that just because they've always been done that way and they may be accomplishing the job, but it's based upon 3,500 versus the 10,000. looking at whatever functions proactively that we can do to enhance. I know for churches, it was years ago a taboo to think about giving money online and not doing it in person. I am so glad that our church had switched prior to 2020 to the ability to do online. It allowed us to keep our doors open. So there's things that we can look at within our system that we can be proactive in that's going to help us to continue to move forward.
And that's a good example of something. And you know, in my history with board presentations, I haven't came here and offered tidbits a lot of things that we do internally. I've stuck just to the script other than budget. But I could have brought a presentation to you months ago where we put a platform in for the schools for electronic payments and all that. I mean, we've been doing all kind of stuff like that. So I mean, that's some of that you probably might not even know we doing that.
I know some of it. I'm just was given for my example, but I'm sure there's other innovative things out there too that are still coming out.
Yeah, thank you for that. So budget priorities. This is just one slide. We want to get feedback from you. We want to make sure that you are satisfied with our direction. And listen, we could have given you a book tonight that just slammed home some recommendations, but that's not what our intention is. So we want to make sure that you're comfortable with where we're going, or we can stop it and start in a different direction. So I'm gonna keep moving.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jones, so the work that we will be doing with diversity, equity, inclusion, where would this fall in under the budget priorities?
Well, obviously, district initiative, because we want that as a priority for all schools. And you all, I assume, got the document that we shared where all schools have done a good job in FY21 for spending the money. I believe it was allocated a total of $15,000 last year. You want to say something about that?
What he's asking you is the monies that were allocated for schools DEI last year, is that expected to be continued, or can they expect to see that somewhere on the slide?
Yeah, my assumption is, yes, we would want to, and that's the reason we're asking this. If it's a board priority superintendent, my expectation is, yes, we would rebudget for that. It'd just be a matter, do we increase it, leave it the same? I wouldn't expect it to go down.
I know we may be looking to increase it. I know that I would like to increase it from 750 to 1,000. Not sure how the rest of my colleagues feel about that, but I would like to increase it from 750 to 1,000. And appreciate you guys supporting that as well.
And just an overall comment to you, you heard me say last week, I mean, the budget, the budget, the board is financially sound. So it really, these discussions get down to how much you're willing to authorize the superintendent to use fund balance. Is it important enough to use fund balance, or use CARES money to offset any deficit if we're over or underperforming during the fiscal year? I mean, you're talking about pennies on the dollar for what you're trying to get. So if you're talking about increasing it $5,000 or whatever it would be, I mean, that's not something we can't accommodate.
And I see that we have the priorities listed. I just feel that we should list and spell out that diversity, equity, inclusion will be a part of those district initiatives. If it falls under, staffing, technology, because it really can go in all of those different categories. So I would like to see it spelled out within the list of budget priorities for fiscal year 22.
Okay.
I'm in agreement with that, and likewise, I hope that through our strategic planning for the 5 years that it's included in that aspect of it, because obviously we're just embarking on some of that work, but we want to make sure that we do make it a priority.
And board members, just, I think I'm on, but just for a matter of clarity, typically what happens when the board funds a project or an expenditure, it lives forever until we take it out. So at a minimum, next year it would be what it is this year. I've heard and have made note of the request to see an increase in that allocation. We'll take care of it. You'll see that next week, I believe, at our first workshop. We'll be able to demonstrate that on the screen for you.
And I,
That's good to know. That was going to be one of my questions to Mr. Jones.
Money, where you get these batteries from, man? Big Lot? Thank you. Amazon.
once it's in until we take it out. I was unaware of that, and I'm glad to learn that tonight. The only other thing, and it's two things, I will support Mr. Brown on the, upping the ante, so to speak, for DEI. I also want to be sure that I've said before is that we listen to our leaders in our schools. He or she knows what they need for their individual schools. Yes, we have gaps we need to close. What is good for school A may not be good for school B. The money spent at school A may be different than the money spent at school B. I just want to be sure that our school leaders will have the funds they feel like they need to move us forward possibly post-COVID, but I think Mr. Simmons understands what I'm trying to say, is that they get what they want, not necessarily what they want, they get what they need for their students and their staffs. Thank you.
And most of what you hear me talking about is general fund, but Ms. McLemore and Sarah Jones is in the audience. We've already gone through a huge consolidation of funds, Fund 150, where we pool funds together, and a piece of that's the general fund. It's a big administrative exercise for folks up here to deal with, but it benefits the schools for flexibility with their money. And all of those budgets have already been pretty much vetted out, and communication has gone back to the schools. Some of their requests are, there are still some requests for additional board money on top of that we have got listed here tonight that we're still under consideration. But the other items that are within those monies where they have flexibility, they've been given approval on those items already. They just can't act on them until after July 1. They can go ahead and make a hiring decision, et cetera. I hope I'm doing that justice the way I'm explaining that.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Some of these you've seen. Go ahead. Total appropriation. The only thing I really changed on this side from last week was the nutrition program. I met with Mr. Wheeler. He did admit to me, Mr. Holmes, that was him walking down the street after our conversation. And so we've trimmed that down. You'll see that in a minute, $6,250,000. Again, my bullet point at the bottom, these general fund and special revenue may continue to change on some of these presentations, but the nutrition and the capital projects and the debt service is probably not going to. State revenues, you saw this last week. We changed our slide format. I couldn't get the red to show up on here, so that the negatives, I had them in red, but we had to change them back. So anyway, that's the same slide other than the color. Your FTE counts, same thing I showed you. Just put a bullet point on the bottom left to make sure y'all understand this does not include pre-K. So 9321 was our midterm allotment sheet, and that's the number going into FY22. If you average $5,000 a child, that's about a $2 million plus hit to our general fund. And just to remind you, we're still willing to pay and fund the teachers and stuff because of the commitment by the board. So when you start looking at pluses and minuses, that has a big impact. General revenue summary, same number you saw last week. The main pickup in that is going to be from the title ad valorem tax, where the vehicle sales in the county are really outperforming maybe what the budget was. And I know when I came on board, Ryan had talked to me about really not budgeting maybe the last 3 months of the year in 2021 because you just really didn't know at the time. So it's just really been outperforming expectations. You saw this slide as well. I changed the word for potential to propose because we will be proposing a longevity step. I trimmed that number down to around 800,000. Just to be clear, when we do a salary step-up file, this is accounting minutia terminology, we have people changing positions all over the place for next year. They might not be at the same school, or they may be leaving and we're replacing them, so there's some savings in there that we have to try to corral. But I have to cut it off at some point and do a projection. The projection came in higher, but I pulled it down based on what normally happens in the district. So that's why I tried to encumber some savings in that number. So 800 is normally what the district has had for that. It may fluctuate just a little bit. Again, I told you about the TRS number increasing. That's close to 150,000. We don't have any control over that. So, yes.
As an addendum, Mr. Jones, is there any way that you can add the teacher pay scale to this?
That'll be in your budget book. If you want me, you'll get it Tuesday unless you want it in a slide format.
I would like it in a slide format. As supported documentation.
Teacher pay scale?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, as we start now, we're about to get to the point where I'm going to pause for discussion again. So as we look at potential general fund requests by item on the next couple of slides, the main amount of money that we are injecting is going to be for the teacher allotment piece. So $2 million, $1.8 million to $2.2 million, somewhere in that range, depending on where they fall out on the salary scale, is the majority of the requests. So when you get to the next couple of pages, you'll see more, you see some administrative stuff and a few other things, but just keep in mind, I don't have this on that other slide, but the $2 million is sitting on this slide, just don't forget that. COVID-19, again, is allowing us some flexibility to be able to have this kind of conversation and not have it in the way that we've got a huge deficit and we've got to start cutting stuff. We're not in that situation right now. So that is giving us a little bit of a prop up for the next couple of years. Again, I've talked to you about pre-K and workers' comp. I did want to make a comment on our financial report. If you go back and look at it, we've spent about $212 grand this year on workers' comp. That's our insurance, reinsurance policy, any attorney's fees, and any claims. So with a few months left to go in the year, we'll probably save money on that. It's just a normal budgeted item of $325,000. So the next three slides are where I'm going to pause. I want to make a couple of comical comments. We talked about the Falcons and the Bucks earlier. In honor of you wearing a red tie, our superintendent likes to use terminology, so you'll see that terminology at the top of these requests. So what we've tried to do from reading from left to right, you've got some by topic requests tied back to budget priority by number on a few prior pages. Remember, we went over that. The requested dollar amount, and then you've got a column called good, better, and best. My plan is to budget in for next Tuesday the best column. If you'll look at the top, if we go with a good column, there's going to be some items that are not going to be funded in one that might be funded in the second, but everything's funded in the third. So as I said earlier, to compete and to be what we are or maybe do a little bit better, we can go with good. If we really want to try to improve things, the better is the better way to go. But if you really want to stand out and get to where you want to go the quickest, we need to look at being a leader and being the best. So a couple of items I'll point out on this list. I'll start with an HR item. Turn to page 2, HR recruitment, retention specialist. We just talked about that earlier in the superintendent's entry plan and turnover. We talked about that. I've been observing that in this meeting a couple of times. Well, if we want to do something about it, there's your item. We've got a request. And when I put a dollar figure out there, that's probably a high side, but that's including benefits. That's your full load. So if we did fund that, then you would drop over to page 3, and there's an item called Handshake Professional, and I think, let's see, Dr. Taylor's in here. I don't know if she knows anything about that, but that is a program that goes along with recruiting and retention. So those two items will kind of go hand in hand. We also, on page 3, want to make a recommendation to increase the life insurance for employees in this school system up to $20,000 because we are behind competitive rates for the systems in our RESA area. I did this in another district as well. For pennies on the dollars, we could be offering. You all have seen how that impacted a family in this district this year. You've also got some items on here listed on the left. All the way to the right, they've got the word CARES. That just simply means that they're still under consideration. These are school-based items. They could be funded out of the general fund, or we're trying to see if they would qualify for CARES funding. If they would, they could be possibly granted or recommended, but paid from another pot of money. but we did want to show them on here. This list started a lot longer than this. The items have been taken off. There are a few items that we may reconsider and put back on here, but as tonight's meeting, this is where we're at right now. And I'm not trying to exempt myself. I've got an item on here. We really need to grow over there. You're getting my best effort, but we need to grow. We got training in this district. We got a ton of folks when I committed to come up here that I want to help make better. And to do that, we can't just tie ourselves to the desk. We got to get out. We got to train. Like I told you earlier, when I'm maxing out my intern, I'm gonna be missing out. I hope I get it. I'm gonna have to talk to Ms. Foles if I can get me another good intern next year. I might have to get 2 interns. There's a lot of work that goes on, and we want to improve what we're able to offer the board and the community. You even got some things in here for lead custodians, custodian floaters. You know, that topic's come up in here a lot that I've observed. I've been in a district that had lead custodians designated, so I'm used to that kind of stuff. But again, as we assess, Mr. Akins is in here and brought that item for consideration. The superintendent's got it on the list right now. That's kind of got you an approximate cost for that as well. Dr. Warren, Dr. Sauce got a few items on here. Block scheduling, PL, additional work days in the summer for some counseling. You know, I don't know the depth of that, but they've really lobbied for that in the cabinet meeting about the workloads during the summer when there's still work to be done, but the people are off contract. So, has anybody got any questions? I'm gonna pause. I know you're probably just getting this today, and if you need to get back with us, that's fine.
Well, I just want to bring out something that I was sharing with Mrs. Simmons, and the reason why, you know, I kind of brought up the benchmarking piece because it equates to dollars. Because right now, you know, we've been doing a good job of rolling back taxes and holding the millage rate, but you see, we have a steady decline in our FTE, and that you know, we lose money coming in, and you know, we can't keep doing the things that we do, funding the things that we fund at the level we do it at, when money, in other words, long story short, you know, we're gonna have to look at that millage rate eventually. So I know that's not a feel good subject in you know, in our budget process, but that's what I just want to plant a seed for us all to be thinking about. You know, we talked about being proactive. We don't need to wait till it hits. We need to be prepared or have a plan or know what plan of action that we're going to take if this trend continues.
You know, and I think historically, when I look at some of the charts Mr. Ryan was using with Jim, I think they normally brought you a proposal with the same amount of dollars, and their articulation may have been to keep the same rate. Okay, that's what you know. When it got down to the summer, it might be rolled back, which meant the dollars in the budget was the same.
Right.
But what we'll need to consider is if we leave it the same and the formula works like it should, then that will be more dollars that would pick up for the district, but we may budget it at the conservative. So you get in worst case scenarios, what I'm giving you again.
Right.
Conservative. So, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Jones, I know we talked a couple of sessions ago about individual schools contacting parents as to what their child may or may not do, you know, come back to the system in the fall. Could we get an update? I know that tons of parents have been called just to see what they're thinking with regard to, it doesn't matter whether the child would remain virtual or in person, but just coming back to the system for the FTE count. Could we get an update on that?
Well, I know in the individual budget meetings that we had with the schools where I was referencing Fund 150, okay? And I recorded all these meetings, as a matter of fact. You remember you told me about that, I hit that record, but that is a specific question that we had for them to articulate in that. I don't know if we probably have to get this back to you.
No, I don't mean tonight. Could we just be given some updated information with regard to that, is my question.
Ms. McDonald, we can provide that update. I'm going to, Dr. Sauce and members of the staff are driving that process. We'll have that update to you by the 18th, if not sooner. If we get it sooner, we'll send it via email.
Correct.
If not, then we'll try to include that in our
Sure,
conversation.
just in the next, okay.
ma'am.
And one other comment I see here with regard to instructional paras. You know, when I was an educator, I tell you, I had some, I'm sure people in this room, I had some exceptional paraprofessionals working for me. I would entertain to approve these instructional parapros because it gives leaders in buildings the options to do small group learning, small group learning, small group learning to help close some of these gaps. I also would recommend is that we contact some of our retirees that could come back half a day, quarter days, exceptional teachers that were in this system until they retired, and ask them if they would like to come back for half a day and to help, again, close the gaps in some of the buildings that we have. I think that would be a great use of their abilities.
Yes, ma'am.
And it certainly would help our students and the leaders in our buildings, too.
Mr. Harper, can you mute my mic? I'm just joking. One of the things that we are considering, board members, and you see next to instructional paras, CARES funding, we are looking to find a way to make that a centralized support mechanism in every classroom, at every school. Right now, what you see represented is an individual school or a couple of schools' requests. We're trying to figure out how do we provide that type of top-down support with CARES funding, and then whether or not we'd be able to sustain it beyond CARES. So again, you're going to see more in the CARES budgets as we develop them, but I do appreciate hearing your feedback relative to our consideration of how we might be able to support schools as they receive a lot of students who've seen a lot of things over the last couple of years. So thank you for that feedback.
I would have a few questions about things that are in here. I think enough of the questions, for instance, what are nearpons? You know,
We can get that answer right quick.
Explanation of some of those type of things. So maybe I can sit down with yourself or somebody between now and next Tuesday to get a few of those type of questions answered based upon, what are some of the additions to the central office staff versus school staff. When I look at the, you pretty much said the $2 million was for keeping the teachers the way that it is, and then this is at $1 million, but then the deficit was 3,700. So where is that other seven?
All that, again, that deficit and that kind of stuff is all estimated.
Okay.
And I can guarantee you we're going to wind up performing better than the expectations.
And then when will we know what can be taken care of with CARES funds this year versus what can't be taken care of with CARES funds that's actually going to be taken out of the budget?
Yeah, well, the short answer is we have the ability to prop up, for lack of a better way, a 3.8, let's just call it $5 million deficit, just to say it. I mean, that can be used for usage of, continuing operations. The process is we have to go through a deliberate budget deliberation with her, Ashley McLemore, and Sarah's group. That has to go uploaded and get approved at the state, just so that's kind of, we got to have some kind of a shell budget to begin with to get that approved. I'm talking about in this year we're in right now. And then there's items within FY21 that we may can credit back that already qualify. Like, for example, the item on here for COVID tracking assistant, we're already paying that person with a general fund out of HR's office, but that can qualify for credit back. We could leave it in the general fund, eat the cost, use the CARES for something else, but we've got it in here to use it next year. So there's a lot of there's a lot of moving parts to that. It's a good problem to have as far as the money. We will have 14.6 CARES 2 and 30-something million. The number, I can't remember exact numbers, 33 million, which 8 of that has to be learning loss. So there's so many moving parts to it. And that's why I'm trying to be transparent to tell y'all, that's why you didn't get a hard-coded, this is what we recommend, because we got to have some guidance on some of this stuff. Any more questions on the items that we've listed?
Yes, sir.
I'll have to see. We can do it. I mean, that tentative budget is something that we can, there's so many versions of that, and I need to see what you've been doing, but that doesn't really matter. We can do what we need to do. I mean, that is our, there's not a, you gotta do it this way. Okay, I'll take a look at it. Okay, so we gave you a 3-page list. I hope that was helpful. That's tangible items. It could be a moving target, but the assumption will be, unless we hear back from you from a negative standpoint, that this will probably be built in next Tuesday. We can always change it before final. We do have to have a number to work with. Go ahead, Lon. These other slides, I'm going to go pretty quick through this. You've seen this before with some verbiage at the bottom. The revenue number changed just a little bit, so you're still in the 3.7 deficit right now. We'll continue to look at that. The special revenue fund, same slide as you saw last week, approximately $30 million. This does not include CARES 3. This does include CARES 2, $14.6 million. Same bullet points on the slide from last week. I showed you our values. That March number showed February last week. It's 9.2 million. Current receipts for SPLOST 6, that includes the 1,100,000 and something thousand that was just received the other day, and you see the balances from the prior SPLOST. We do have, are going through a plan on how to spend that money from the prior SPLOST. Go ahead, Lon. And you saw this as well last week. A plan of action is currently being formed on that with Mr. Akins and Cabinet and Maintenance Department, Capital Projects. Nutrition, just want to say a couple of words. Like I said, I had prepared the presentation last week before we found out this information. Seamless summer option will be the way we handle the nutrition program in FY22, so we won't be charging for meals. The reimbursement rates will be beneficial for us in that environment, and according to Robert, in this option, we'll be able to feed, we'll be able to take care of in-school and virtual. Hopefully, we'll increase our participation, especially if we're back in school. If we're back in a normal environment. He can normally sustain himself, may not make any money, but can sustain himself if we're in an in-school environment on a monthly basis. So that's important. These other items, again, 175 serving days, you already know all that, longevity step. Debt service fund, we're going to close that. Just to put you a bullet at the bottom, pay as you go. I assume y'all know what that means?
Yes, sir, we do.
Okay, pay as you go.
Pay as you go.
All right. There's approximately $5,000 left in the debt service fund, but that'll go back to the capital projects fund. In summary, I basically said all this. You can look that over. The main things are proposed step increases, full calendar for employees, 175 instructional days. And the last slide, we tweaked this a little bit. You all give us some feedback if you have any problem with the published or the times that we're planning on having the public hearings. So Tuesday, May 11th, if you all are good with 5 o'clock, we need 3 of you here. We got to have a quorum to do it. Budget book should be available by then. Tuesday, the 18th, you've got a work session at 4, so we can do that at 3:30. You would approve the tentative budget then. We're going to put it in the paper on Friday, the 21st. This is a little change of what you've seen before, but this meets compliance. And then we're going to go ahead and just make the decision to ask you for final adoption. Instead of June 1st, we're going to do it on the 15th, and that'll leave a little bit more time. All that matters is we get it done, and we don't have to ask for a spending resolution. So there's no reason to push that on June 1st. There may be something come up in the meantime. There's another question and A, but I assume y'all are all questioned out. I'm sorry that took so long, but we did feel like we needed to be open and transparent. I hope this format was okay. It's a little different than what you're used to.
That's right.
11 at 5. May 11th at 5.
No, the 4th is tonight. The 11th,
That's,
I don't know if this is exactly what you were looking for back for the input, but I'm not sure how the other board members, I would like to see it done as the best. And then if we need to back off from that as we're going through these budget things, that's what I would prefer to see, is it done as the best. I don't want to limit on the get-go unless we get into some of that talking and discussions and we feel like we have to pull something back.
and I was gonna add, and thank you for bringing that to the table, Mr. Dawson. And I was gonna say to the board members, if you could, if there are items or things that you would like to see in the budget, let Mr. Simmons know, and that way we can get it into the budget process. And that way, you know, instead of just passing a budget, we'll be able to support the budget. You know, you'll see stuff that you understand in a way that you understand, and we'll be more than just passing the budget. We you know, we can support the budget. So if you want to see anything, a certain way or stuff in there, just let Mr. Simmons know, and he'll get with Mr. Jones and try to accommodate us.
yes, ma'am.
I think it's interesting, too, that I think everyone in the room knows that the school nutrition portion of this is very important to me. And last year,
Me too.
we were like at 73% of our student population was on free and reduced, because I raised a lot of money for the 27% that were not eligible for federal aid, whereas this year, it's interesting to see that our system is down to about 88%, where they do receive, students do receive aid from the federal government, and that's a significant change, I think.
And you know, the factors in that, and with an asterisk, I'm giving you raw data.
Sure.
The COVID and the numbers are exacerbated by the time they take them with who they could take. It's probably a much smaller subset that they could get that data from.
Sure.
But that is what the number that Robert gave me.
But still, I think that's pretty significant from one school year to the next. COVID, or you know, I know that's part of it, but anyway, I just kind of wanted to remind you of that. So. Thanks.
All right, well, I appreciate it. If there's anything in the next few days, if you'll share it with Mr. Simmons and he'll get it back to me, we'll try to get it rolled in. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. All right, board members, we have some information items that you can look at your leisure. And also, Griffin-Spalding County April Employees of the Month list. Make sure you pay special attention to that list as well. At this time, if there's no further items or discussion from anyone, we'll start to my left with Ms. McDonald and then Mr. Dawes with any board member comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I looked through social media this afternoon, it was encouraging to see the Georgia Future Educator Signing Day. All the young people from Spalding High School and Griffin High School and at GRCCA that want to come back and be part of Griffin-Spalding County Schools. And it just gave me cold chills as a former educator to see the number that we had signed with regard to that. And we do know that it's Teacher Appreciation Week. I wanted to obviously publicly thank all of our teachers out there. And today is National Teacher Day, and that was always an important day for me also. But I also wanted to share with you just one paragraph of Superintendent Wood's letter, open letter to all the teachers in this state. The gift of stability, connection, progress, and hope you've given your students this year is no small thing. I know it has been hard. I know you have been asked to create something entirely new, but I hope you'll see this year not just as a struggle, but as an accomplishment. I am grateful and I'm proud of all you have achieved. So I second Superintendent Wood's words in his letter to all the teachers in the state of Georgia. All I can say is a huge, huge thank you for all the hoops you've had to go through, all the jump roping you've done, and all the support systems behind teachers in all of our buildings. Thank you. I hope all of you have a great Teacher Appreciation Week, and thank you for everything you've done for our students and families.
I'm in a complete agreement, and I think it needs to be Teacher Appreciation Year rather than just the week. What has happened, I'm very appreciative of everybody here and all of the work that you are doing, the continuation. And I will say, I don't know how many people make it a general practice within the staff, whether it's central office, whether it's at the schools, or wherever. I know there's a lot to recognize Thankful Thursdays, but I received my first Thankful Thursday card, and the 14 words made a big difference in my day today. So just know that it doesn't take a lot, but it does make a difference, and I appreciate it.
Ms. Cook?
Mr. Chair, this has been a great night for recognitions. We had some great student, teacher, retiree recognitions. It's just been an amazing night. I want to take a minute to thank Dr. Kennedy for the work that she has done for this school system. Know that you will be missed, and know that you have made a significant impact in the lives of so many of our students, our teachers, and staff. We're going to miss you. Thank you. Godspeed and happy trails in whatever you are doing as you retire. I enjoyed Mr. Simmons' reflections tonight, and I really love the non-negotiables of be professional, be accountable, and communicate effectively. That's great advice for all of us. If we can all continue to do that, we will make great strides in this school system. I want to congratulate Mr. Chambers for being selected as principal of Griffin High School. That high school is in my district, so I'm very proud of that high school and look forward to great things for Griffin High School. Go Bears!
Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, thank you so much. Just want to give a shout out to all of the awesome and amazing teachers that we have in our district. Yesterday, my good friend and fellow colleague on the board in DeKalb County, released a amazing teacher appreciation video where he took the theme song from the Golden Girls. Am I the only one that loved the Golden Girls? And instead of thank you for being a friend, he said thank you for teaching our kids. And if you have not seen that, please check out Mr. DeCosta's video teachers. You will definitely enjoy it. I tagged a couple teachers in it yesterday. They said that it really made their day. It really made them smile. So shout out to all the teachers. Also want to remind everyone that the GSCS District 1 Senior Spotlight will be held on Monday, May 10th at 6:30 p.m. at the College and Career Academy. We're looking forward to honoring, I think at this point we have 21 seniors from our 3 different schools who will be honored for graduating from high school. A lot of them, one of the parents emailed me today and said, this is great because my child will be the first high school graduate in my family, in their family. So to those scholars who are still on the grind, school is not over, so keep submitting your work and turning it in as you continue to be the first of many. Also want to say to Dr. Kennedy, thank you so much for all of your hard work that you have done in this school district. I remember a couple years ago when they introduced you to the community, District 1 Representative Mr. Kendall at that time and Leader Holmes had an event at Fairmont, and I remember meeting you, and I just want to say as a member of this board, thank you for your hard work and your leadership on the many different things that you have done in this district. It does not go unnoticed, and so just thank you so much for that. And I think that's all I have, Mr. Chair. That's a lot, but yeah, that's all I have.
Right. And I would like to echo the Teacher Appreciation Week. I don't think, and I always tell teachers, if we put more emphasis on professions like that as we do with athletics and things of that nature, I don't think we would have some of the shortages and issues that we have in education, because I feel like that's one of the most important jobs that one can have in this day and time, teaching our young people. I also want to say congratulations to Mr. Chambers. Before we leave, I want to get some information from you, and I just appreciate everyone here. Again, Dr. Kennedy, you know, we have time together, but as me and Dr. Sauce was talking about during the break, hey, it's already May 4th. And, you know, a lot of people didn't think we were going to make it, but here we are on the cusp of getting through another year with all the issues that we've had to go through. We survived and we thrive. So I thank everyone for getting us to this point. And I don't say that just to be saying it. I sincerely mean it. It takes a team to do what we do. And I thank God that we have the team that we have, where one falls short, another will pick them up. So with that being said, happy Teacher Appreciation Week, and kudos to everyone. If there's no further comments or issues, we do not have anything for executive session. Praise God. If I can get a motion to adjourn. Got a motion by Ms. McDonald, second by Mr. Dawson. All in favor, vote by walking.